things I wanted to talk about. But in the aftermath of the Second World War, there was a baby boom. Soldiers returned home, they went dancing, a lot of babies were born. And that baby boom in California was primarily Anglo. Not exclusively, but it was primarily Anglo. And so you see them moving through time. I mean, if we just imagine this moving through time. Now, I want you to know that when I got out of service, going to college was just about free. When I first went to college, I just was paying a few bucks to go to Sacramento City College. And today, students, if they go to Sac State or the University of California or even community colleges, are paying a heck of a lot of money. So I wanted to try to kind of root some of my observations in this demographic shift that is occurring, because I think there's some interesting things that are happening. So, we came out of the Second World War as the premier empire on the planet Earth. We were flush with money and suburbs and freeways, and young guys going to college was the call of the day. That's what was happening. And you also saw the development of white flight, which Chris talked a little bit about a moment ago. But in California legislatively, the end result of that was the Master Plan for Higher Education, which was basically a promise to the people of the state of California. We're going to, because we value education, we're going to make it easy and affordable for your children to go to college. The Latino population in 1970 was about 12%. The Latino population in the year 2011 is about 38%. Change is coming on little feet. Major demographic change has been occurring in the state of California. Now, I just introed by saying we were flush with money and we opened up the system. Now, what happened? In 1978, the people of the state of California, by way of Proposition 13, amended the California Constitution. Just very short, kind of substantive was, they said, we want to severely limit real property taxes. We're going to put a two-thirds vote requirement if you want to raise taxes. Everybody got that, right? This is a big thing. This was part of an anti-government, anti-tax, conservative ideological push in this country. Howard Jarvis and Paul Gann led a populist uprising that had roots through all communities in California. It was really popular, and it passed. I read one estimate today indicating that over that 32-year period since it passed, the California coffers have lost approximately $500 billion. This was a very strong, concerted effort to capture a populist right-wing wind to defund the public sector. I mean, that's the only way I can think about it. Two, there's something else happening during this period of time. There was the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. The Brown case, as Chris pointed out, very important. But here's the problem. People of color had demanded, as a matter of liberation of democratic rights in this country, that their children could go to school. Oh my God, if I could just get my kids so they don't got to be like me. It was the promise that was in the civil rights movement. Yes? And so the victories from that period of time are very important. But what Chris said was so important. Brown was betrayed. And white supremacy was the rule in this country. Even though in legal and rhetorical terms, one would think that it would have been different. Instead, Brown too said, with all deliberate speed, we got to try to desegregate. Now here's the problem. Today, if you look at the studies by Gary Warfield and by a number of others, what they are noticing is the resegregation in this country of our public school system. I mean, it's kind of like weird to now, what does that mean for the African liberation, the black people's liberation movement in this country? It's like, well, why should we keep on listening to this integrationist bullshit? It's a wolf ticket. You know what I mean? No. The question for black people in this country is, can we educate our children? What do we got to do to take responsibility to make sure our kids get educated? I'm not attempting to agree with this point. I want you to point out what's going on out there. The rise of some charter schools is, by whatever means necessary, we're going to take care of our kids because the integrationist approach is simply a canard. Yes? And I think for Latinos and Hmong and Southeast Asian people, thinking through this thing, there are different other currents going on as well. One of which is that the assimilation project that Chris was talking about, that the public schools were closely identified with assimilation, was rejected in the liberation struggles of many people of color who said, no, we don't have to be assimilated. And so you can see some Latino-based charter schools attempting to deal with that issue. Okay? And then the next thing I wanted to touch on is right now, today. The budget, and I stand to be corrected if I've got the numbers wrong, but it looks like we have a $25 billion deficit, approximately that much. And the administration has proposed about a $12.5 billion cut. Let me just quickly say that this means millions of dollars taken away from disabled people and the elderly. So so we're talking about education tonight, but it's important. People that we care for can be hurt dramatically by these cuts. So the administration has proposed about $12.5 billion in cuts and is asking for about $12.5 billion in tax extensions. So that's the big controversy right now. Without these tax extensions, some very bad things are going to be happening. I believe in terms of K through 12, if I remember correctly, it's at least 20,000 teachers will be losing their jobs. I mean, just like that. That's on top of approximately 30,000 over the last 2 years, if I remember correctly. I want you to know that I teach over at Sac State, and there, students have had a 242% fee increase since 2002. They have been cut approximately $1.5 billion in the past couple of years. They've let go of about 3,000 faculty. They've slashed course offerings. So students are organizing. One of the things that we say over at Sac State is learn from the students, because they're taking it into the quad and into the streets and they're raising a ruckus. And my union backs that up, so I'm very proud of that. But that's what they're facing in higher education. And from a kid's perspective, what are they seeing? From a kid's perspective, from their eyes. They're seeing there's no longer assemblies. It's harder and harder to find tutors. There's dirty schools. The books are starting to fall apart. There's no music classes, the field trips, the microscope. I could go on and on and on. All of you who are teachers know that you're getting hit in different ways. And as Lori pointed out the other day, this is not all equal across the board. There are some people, poor people and people of color that are going to schools that are going to be disproportionately impacted by what's happening in the state right now. So, if I can just finish up, we're living in a pretty intense political period. In South America and Central America, the term is neoliberalism. And it's meant to convey this idea that there is a paradigm of triumphant capitalism. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the United States is the world empire. And what it needs to do is celebrate the free market, celebrate individualism, crush unions, crush the public sector, romanticize, duplicate, replicate market systems, business systems everywhere. So, it's anti-tax, anti-government, against the public interest, anti-union, and promoting privatization and the market glorification. Just 1 second. You can see all around the country, if you look at the newspapers, in Detroit, they're trying to privatize there and give power to individual kind of guys that will go around just make market-oriented decisions for what's in the public interest. In San Jose, I just read the newspaper the other day, the mayor is pushing to do away with pensions. Congress is pushing for a voucher system on Medicare. They want to defund legal services for the poor. In Sacramento, we're still talking about the corporate kings. I think I've said enough. Thank you.